Hi guys, I'm Shawn. I'm here with Jeremy and Jarrod from MenzaGaming.net. We're bringing you a bit of a review of the latest and greatest, hot off the press supplement, which is the Angels of Death book. It just came out this week, was it? I think.
Yeah, it came out this Saturday. Basically compiling rules from Imperial Fist, Salamanders, Raven Guard, White Scars, and Iron Hands. So a lot of the original Space Marine chapters, I guess.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of formations and other really, really cool rules. So it's going to be quite in depth. A lot of content to come out of this book, which I think is definitely worth covering.
Absolutely. So it's a bit of a collage of various things that have already been released. There's other supplements there that were already released in the K-Iron book. There's a few other things in there as well, which we're going to cover in more depth as we go through. There's a lot to talk about. In addition to that, obviously there's the new Psychic Trees and also a couple new units, which were from the Betrayal of Calth kit, which have now been given rules for 40k. So we're going to head straight into it. We'll start off with the new units, I suppose, Jeremy?
Yeah, thanks guys. So I think let's start off with the least significant new release out of the Betrayal of Calth units, which is the unit of Cataphracti Terminators. So more or less here, we're just looking at a unit of, obviously for those of you familiar with Forge World or Heresy 40k stuff, 30k stuff I should say, Cataphracti are basically just a relic Terminator suit, built in with more powerful shield generators than your regular tactical Dreadnought armor. So these guys are basically just standard Terminators with a 4-up invuln rather than a 5-up.
Absolutely. So invulnerable save is one better. I guess weapon options are limited. You can either take the Lightning Claws, or you have the Power Fist and Combi Bolters. You can also swap, I think, 1 per 5. In fact, you can swap any for Chain Fists. Chain Fists.
You also got the option there for a 1 in 5 to get a Heavy Flamer, which can be interesting in some builds we've looked at. There's lots of stuff to cover. So I guess the sacrifice there, the trade-off is you've got a more defensive unit in the increased invul, but not as many options in terms of like offensive loadouts.
Less shooting, like Combi Bolters are just twin link bolt guns, so not as good as a Storm Bolter. They're slow and purposeful, which means no Overwatch. They get no additional benefit from that particular slow and purposeful rule, unlike something else we'll discuss soon. It's interesting that they've only really replicated the options, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware of, that were in that Calth kit.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I believe that Cataphracti Terminators in 30k can take more options, but in this particular unit type can only take what they can get in that kit.
Yeah, look, I'm not particularly familiar with what the outfitting of the unit is in 30k, but obviously these are just crossover rules enabling people that have bought that kit to use them in 40k, which I think is a cool initiative. Whether or not you're going to see a lot of it, I don't think so in terms of this unit. But, you know,
I think that if you were going to use them, you would probably try and make a build around them, which means at that point, once you've taken the Relic Terminators, anyone who has these Cataphracti Terminators are probably going to have access to the Captain. We'll go at him in a second. But you would obviously try and build a list around it, try and improve that invul save. Obviously, without the option to take Storm Shields, maybe be looking at something like Stern to try and like give him that 3-up invul, which is the same effect basically.
To be honest, we're talking. This is obviously, I'd say, on similar par to normal tactical Terminators. Tactical Terminators almost see no play. So these are kind of it's a slight buff of those, but probably still rare.
People basically take Storm Shields or they don't take them.
Exactly.
So I think that's about all we really need to cover there. What is really relevant, I guess, is the ability to then take a captain wearing the same type of Terminator armour, and this sort of lends itself to a couple of different options here. Shawn, I know you had a couple of points you wanted to make on that.
Yeah, so the Terminator Captain is a pretty big changer in the meta. He brings a few rules. The Cataphracti suit that he gets, in addition to his Iron Halo, gives him a rerollable save. You reroll your invul saves of 1. So having a 4-up invul base, being a captain, he has options to take Storm Shields, take Relics, Heart of the Gorgon, Gorgon's Chain, Shield Eternal, that sort of thing. So again, with someone like Stern or some other way to get the Sanctuary spell, a few options there to get a...
so we can get effectively, all you need to add in is Stern to get a 2-up rerollable invuln. Correct. So that's obviously a very powerful option.
And the other big play for him is...
Okay, so for those of you unaware of the Terminator Captain's rule, slow and purposeful is a rule that basically what it does, it gives you relentless. It also disallows you to run and does not allow you to fire Overwatch. So it's relentless with a couple of downsides. However, unlike relentless itself, slow and purposeful is a rule that confers to the rest of the unit. So an independent character like this Terminator Captain with slow and purposeful will confer the relentless, or the whole bundle of rules to his whole unit.
Yeah.
Which is, as far as I'm concerned, and I might be wrong here, the only independent character in 40k with... Oh, no, that's not true. There's actually a Necron.
Imperium.
There's
Imperium
so far the only Imperium character with slow and purposeful. So, very important there.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big tool to be able to bring to a unit that you're going to want to move and not lose any effectiveness of shooting. So anything with heavy weapons, I think particularly of interest is going to be your grav weapons. Units that you want to move around with grav but then shoot to their full capacity. That's obviously a really obvious combo. There's a few probably less obvious combos.
I'm really excited to run in with like a unit of Thunderfire cannons.
I think you're going to see some interesting stuff.
I reckon that's going to be a lot of fun right there.
Yeah, so you're looking at obviously anything that benefits a lot from that, moving from like a probably heavy to like relentless. So things like a grav, obviously we discussed, dropping grav cannons will salvo weapons benefit a lot. Even just things like plasma cannons and heavy bolters, multi-bolters.
Devastated
things
spam
that obviously
weapons.
Necessarily aren't going to break the game. There's various levels of power that you can employ. Probably the top end, we're looking at those grav cannons with grav amps. Being able to drop them out of a drop pod with a Cataphractii Captain to tank for that unit. So he's serving, not only is he enabling them, he's giving them, instead of 3 shots at, they'd be shooting at half range, so 12, they're now getting 5 shots at 24, and they've got that Captain to tank as well.
Yeah, they're taking invuln saves.
It's like an alternative take on a Drago build almost, because it gives them mobility that they wouldn't otherwise have, whilst giving a tanking character. So
very
it's
good.
interesting.
Definitely.
It's also... worth noting that in that kind of build, we're talking about Cataphractii Captain tanking for a squad like that. We'll mention at this point the release of the 30th anniversary Imperial Space Marine.
Yeah.
It's not part, for those of you that are interested in that rules, they're not actually part of the Angels of Death rules.
Yeah.
But the Imperial Space Marine is a data sheet that comes with that anniversary model.
Yep.
And basically, it allows you to upgrade any Marine in your Space Marine in your army for free. So as far as I'm aware, that only covers Devastator Marines, Tactical Marines, because they're the only ones with the Space Marine tag. It might cover Assault Marines. I'm not 100% sure on exactly how that works. But you can, for free, upgrade, for example, a Devastator Marine to a normal, your Sergeant, for example, or just a normal extra...
I think you do it on a normal. I think you do it on a normal guy. You don't lose the benefit of the Sergeant.
Signum,
Effectively, the Marine itself is exactly the same. Big difference is the weapon. It takes a weapon that has the option of shooting a secondary mode of fire. We're looking at Strength 5, AP 4.
AP 2, I believe it is.
Sorry, correct. It was Strength 5, AP 2, gets hot, and also has instant death.
Yeah, so rapid fire instant death. So that'll be putting out at close range, we'll be putting out 2 instant death, Strength 5, AP 2 shots.
Yeah.
And just for that build where you might be wanting to put that Captain to give the Grab Devastator squad with Grab Cannons Relentless, you can also throw in a free Space Marine with a disintegrator gun as well.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
If you wanted the max on value, you could take
Yeah.
a unit of 4 grav cannons and then give the sergeant the disintegrator cannon and really punch
Or if you want to get your 5, if you've got limited space in a drop pod, you might upgrade the sergeant. But otherwise, you just do a normal Marine. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting just to see whether that model sees any tournament play and what formats sort of
when
how
it's
people
free,
approach that.
when it's free, there's no reason not to.
I think what Jared's referring to is whether it's going to get banned.
Oh, yeah,
whether
that's very
things is
true.
going to be
a lot of peripheral sort of
Just
formats.
being that it's very limited access to the rules. You found that with a lot of rules these days, people will find copies of online. But this, from what I've seen, these models sold out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So whether people have access to those rules or not will just be interesting to see how that plays out, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, we better get back to
Let's
the
move on.
Angels of Death supplement. Next up is the Contemptor Dreadnoughts.
Jared, what do you think of
Yeah,
that?
Contemptor Dreadnoughts. Very cool model. In terms of what we're going to be looking at in the game, we're looking at almost a hybrid of an ironclad with a venerable to a degree. So front armor 13 Dreadnought is always really, really cool. Same sort of deal as most of the other Dreads nowadays with 4 attacks base, 3 hull points. Of course, you've also got the option to take them in units, so a unit of up to 3. They do have fleet, which I think is really, really cool for walkers. Weapon options, so we start off with a Power Fist with a built-in Copy Bolter, pretty standard stuff there, and a Multi-Melter. Multi-Melter is able to be swapped out for a particular assault cannon, which is
Pattern assault cannon.
Carrier's Pattern. 24-inch, Strength 6, AP 4, Heavy 6 Rending. I think that's quite good.
So it's
it's better because it's also it's a lot cheaper as well. It's at 15 points. It's a really cheap upgrade over some of the other weapon options you had. We see another situation where it has a better defensive stat, but you lose some of the offensive capabilities in terms of weapon options. So it also has the atomantic shielding.
Yes, yeah, which is essentially a 5-up invulnerable save against shooting attacks and a 6-up invulnerable save against close combat attacks. It's also got a little other side effect with adding an inch to an explosion radius, but that's not really relevant, to be fair. But a 5-up invulnerable save is really good.
Absolutely.
Against shooting attacks. You want these guys living.
So, we're looking at a Dreadnought that obviously it's more expensive than a regular Dreadnought. But for those extra... It's almost twice the cost, actually, though. If you give it the upgrade, we're looking at 185 points.
185 points.
So it's not cheap, but you've got the AB-13, you've got the...
It has the venerable upgrade as well. I mean, it can't re-roll the damage. You can't force your opponent to re-roll the damage result, but you do have that veteran stat line of the weapon skill, ballistic skill 5, so that's obviously good.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they'll definitely see some play. Their fleet is fleet's an underrated rule.
Oh yeah.
Being able to re-roll that charge range or just one dice increases their mobility. They have that similarity with Mauler Fiends. We know how good Mauler Fiends are, but obviously these guys only move to 6 inches. Yeah.
I think units of 3 of these will become commonplace.
Yeah, they could do. Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty.
Cool. So that covers all the new units.
Yeah, that covers the new units. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess did we want to cover just briefly what's in the book before we move on to part 2?
Before we move on to part 2, we'll just kind of outline what we're expecting for the rest of the book. So there's a lot of formations in this book that are basically reprinted out of Warzone Damocles Chaos. So you see some Raven Guard and some White Scars formations, but however they're applicable for all Space Marine.
They've opened up the options there.
Yeah, so as they were in Chaos, you can take them with any faction, but there's also specific Warlord traits and War Gear relics for White Scars and Raven Guard. These are just reprinted straight out of Chaos, and Chaos we're talking 3 or 4 months old at this point, so we won't go over those, but there are other things we will be going over, such as...
There's a lot of new content.
There is definitely a lot of new content.
In addition as well, you've got the Clan Rakan, which has been reprinted, so you've got their relics. A couple of alterations there, which we'll definitely cover. And you've also got, I think it was the Imperial Fist having some of the Sentinels of Terror rules. Again, maybe some slight alterations to the original print, but you're seeing the same relics and same Warlord traits and stuff reprinted. Really good book, I'd say overall, just to have as one piece, have all this information collated.
It's a really value. It's a great compendium, and like the price tag on it is quite affordable now. We've seen like a trend of codexes and slowly increasing in price, and this is coming in at far below the cost that they usually are. It is a paperback, which is a bit different, but we're not here to talk about that. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, so part 2 we're going to look at the formations, specifically the new kind of stuff, and then part 3 we'll be looking at the new psychic trees.
New psychic trees,
4 trees. See you guys for part 2 coming up just now.
Cheers.
Cheers.